Okay.
Good evening. Thanks for joining me. Dan Wilson, running for Kootenai County Sheriff. Wherever you are joining us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, we're glad you showed up tonight. We're going to have a show packed full of interesting questions that we've been getting. Many of them are repeat questions that maybe some of you have not heard the questions and the answers, as well as some new questions. And there's some things that have come up in the past week. I am joined tonight by my wife, Donna. Donna, thank you for joining me tonight.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here. I produce the show. I field your questions and comments. So any platform you're joining us from, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Facebook interfaces really well. It's very easy to manage your comments there. So you can hop on over to Facebook if you want to join in, but you can leave your comments on any platform where you're watching, and I will field those and get them to Dan. We will converse about it. You had some pretty exciting things happen over the weekend.
Yeah.
Going to share that a little bit.
I want to talk about that. And I think first you have a video that we're going to play. It's the newest video that I released yesterday. And it is discussing a helicopter that the county is using that is a private, but it's part of a public-private partnership. Some donations from the Kootenai tribe to this helicopter project. Well, take a look at the video and you'll see what I'm talking about. This helicopter program is sketchy. You have a 501c3 that was formed to purchase a helicopter, who then provides that helicopter free of charge to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. You have a deputy, a lieutenant that is a registered agent for this nonprofit. You have $100,000 of civil asset forfeiture money that is being used to equip this helicopter. And then, of course, you have a $200,000 donation from the Kootenai tribe for this helicopter. Then they, right after that, request from the sheriff's office the ability to take over as primary law enforcement for all tribal lands, to include tribal and non-tribal members. Now, if you go to theidahosheriff.com, you can download all the documents that I've provided. They include emails, Board of County Commissioner minutes, and videos, and a timeline. So take a look. Let me know what you think. If you happen to live on tribal lands and are a non-tribal member, you may find this particularly interesting. Let me know what you guys think. So what you just saw there was a video that I released last night. I'm going to be more than happy to go over the timelines. If you go to theidahosheriff.com, you'll see the story. And I have about a 9-page document with links and other downloadable items that you can look and see what I'm talking about. I think a lot of odd things are taking place, sketchy, as I said in the video earlier. But we're going to talk about this a little later on. We want to make certain that you get your questions to us, though. Please send them in. Donna, how do they send the questions in?
Tonight, you can drop them in the comment section, whichever platform that you're watching on. So Facebook, YouTube, we automatically get those. And Instagram, I'm watching that as well. We've already got actually a question that came in related to the video that just rolled.
Let's do it.
The program. Are the interests related to property lines?
Now say that again.
Are the interests in, and we may have you clarify the question, but I'm assuming the interest in the helicopter program, or it could have been the tribal land, are they related to property lines? We might need to get some. Yeah,
let's get a little more clarification on that. And then once we start down this road, though, we're committed, because it's a saga. We've got to start from the beginning and all the way to the conclusion of what we now know. And as Sheriff Bob Norris is frequently fond of saying, I've seen the trailer, I've seen the movie, and we're waiting for the sequel. So,
do you think we'll make it to the sequel?
I absolutely
will make it to the sequel.
Well, I know that he will not make it to the sequel, because he is Sheriff number 13. And for those of you who are superstitious, I happen to not be superstitious. He's going to be number 13. I'm going to be number 14 Sheriff of Kootenai County. So
I think you're right.
What other questions do we have? We'll come back to this here in a second.
Yeah. We've had some people writing in. Specifically, we had an email today where there's somebody concerned, if not actually scared, to publicly or openly support you, because they've received a phone call from Bob Norris himself. And then we've heard on other occasions that sometimes Bruce Matari on behalf of Bob Norris. I don't know, people they're fearful. So I don't know if they're feeling threatened by the conversations that are ensuing when they receive a Norris visit after Norris and his team realizes that somebody might be coming to your side or seeing and believing what you have to say. And that seems like odd behavior. Is that below the belt? I mean, it's a campaign. Yeah. Is it fair game, or is it below the belt?
Well, I think, first of all, that it's unfortunate that this question is not the only one that I have received or you through our different platforms. I've had many individuals come up to me personally, in fact, 3 this past weekend at an event, where they just said, look, please keep us under the radar. We cannot chance that Bob or Bruce knows, and that's Special Deputy County Commissioner Bruce Matari. We cannot let them know that in any way, shape, or form that we are at all following you or endorsing you or being your supporter, because they're concerned about the bullying that takes place. Now, I've not witnessed this myself, but after numerous individuals have come up and said almost verbatim the same thing, I have to start believing that this is true. Now, I have had people call me up individually and say, hey, right after you and I spoke publicly, Bob Norris showed up and was throwing his weight around. Now, if this is true, and if you happen to be one of those individuals in Kootenai County that has received this kind of response, please come forward and let me know. We can keep you completely anonymous. If you want to go on the record, we can put you on the record, but we're compiling all these stories from those in the community, both individuals, couples, business owners, people that are feeling pressured because of the behavior. Now, it's election time, but we still have to be respectful. So anytime that somebody comes up to you and you feel like you are being intimidated, that's probably because the tactics being used against you at that time are definitely for that reason. You will never find Dan Wilson going to somebody who says, I'm not a Dan Wilson supporter, I'm a Bob Norris supporter. You're not going to find me going there uninvited specifically to change somebody's mind. So
do you think the other camp, the Norris camp, doing that, or Norris himself, is it inappropriate? Is it?
Well, absolutely, it's inappropriate. The office of the sheriff is a unique one because you are the chief law enforcement entity in the county. They call them CLEOs. The thing about it is that when you are dealing with the public, you're in your position of authority. And we know from Bob's own campaigning, which never stops, and even when he's using taxpayer dollars disguised as town halls that are actually campaign events, we know that no one ever sees Bob in anything less than his official capacity. So you have to be extremely careful when you are the chief law enforcement officer in the county on how you interact with people. We've actually seen him emotionally also come unhinged, like at the fair, from some Eamon Bundy supporters. And we've gotten numerous other reports of when Bob becomes explosive and emotionally irregulated. So I think it's improper behavior nonetheless. And Special Deputy Bruce Matari, we never did get an answer whether or not he had a psych test prior to getting his special deputization, like the rest of us law enforcement officers had to do. So who knows what kind of behavior that they are exhibiting and or what's being tolerated.
You had a teaser video at the beginning about the helicopter program. Yep. Were you planning on breaking that down a little bit later, or did you? We got the little more clarification we got on that question there in the beginning was to just break that down further, because a 1-minute video was intended to be like, hey, there's this, and this, but it didn't go into a lot of explanation.
Well, of course, I have been accused of dropping innuendos and half-truths and trying to mislead people, and we have in the past always provided links to the evidence that we have produced in order to come to the conclusions or assumptions that we are. This time I wanted to go overboard and make certain that on our website we have a spot to download the documents that I'm going to refer to. You can go to theidahosheriff.com and look for Bob Norris's special helicopter program to read the timeline, and I put I think it's about a 10-page timeline with clickable links. I've included Board of County Commission meeting minutes that you can download, including links to video so you can actually see the video of Bob Norris, Lieutenant Ellis, and others speaking before the county commissioners. I produced the FAA registration, the nonprofit registration. So here's how it breaks down. In Kootenai County, we previous to 2022, 23, did not have a county-owned helicopter. We just don't need one. But Bob, who comes from the largest sheriff's office, I believe in the country, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, just had to have a helicopter because it wasn't worth anymore utilizing Air One out of Spokane County or using the Two Bear Air out of Kalispell or any of the other agencies that can loan a helicopter for the use of search and rescue. And instead, there was this selling of a need. And this is how it worked out. We knew that Bob knew that he could not get the county to purchase a helicopter because they're incredibly expensive. Not only are they expensive to purchase, but then you have to equip them and you have maintenance and insurance and all sorts of things that can drain a budget that's already strapped more than what it needs. For the usage, it just didn't make sense. So, and you can follow along on, again, this downloadable, I guess, outline and timeline that I produced on the idahosheriff.com. So on May 12th of 2022, Kootenai County Regional Air Support Incorporated, a nonprofit, was formed with the state of Idaho, and Kootenai County Sheriff's Office Deputy Lieutenant Mark Ellis is listed as the registered agent of this nonprofit, and he uses the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office address of 5500 North Government Way. The corporation was allegedly formed to purchase a helicopter. Now, there was approximately 5 $100,000 donors, prominent business people in the community, including Todd Stam of Aspen Homes, the McIntyres of Super One Foods, and several others. In 2022, the Coeur d'Alene tribe also donated $200,000 to this nonprofit in order to purchase this helicopter. Now, where do I get all this information? I get it directly from the Board of County Commissioner meetings, where I've linked to, and you guys can download these for yourself. On October 4th of 2022, at the Kootenai County Board of County Commissioners meetings, Sheriff Norris and Lieutenant Ellis speak to the commissioners about the Kootenai County Regional Air Support Corporation, or we're going to start calling it KCRAS, and they disclosed the tribe's donation of $200,000. At this meeting, they were told that Bob wanted to use this helicopter that was going to be provided free of charge. That's free maintenance and free insurance, no charge. The county just had to provide the deputy tactical officers to be able to fly around with the pilots. They're going to use donated pilots, donated everything. And at this county commissioners meeting, they were granted permission from the county commissioners to bring forth a memo of understanding, which they did later on. Now, I'm going to jump around a little bit here. So that was the 4th of October, 2022. On October 18th of 2022, Kootenai County Prosecutor Stan Mortensen emails the United States Assistant Attorney, U.S. Attorney Tracy Wellen, discussing how tribal police can patrol on Kootenai County lands in lieu of Kootenai County Sheriff's deputies. Again, these emails are provided in those links. All these documents are. Also on 10/18/2022, Kootenai County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Sifford emails and states that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office will be cross-deputizing all tribal police and references a flow chart. It's important to note that flow chart. We have not seen this flow chart yet, despite our request. Then on 12/8 of 2022, approximately 2 months later, emails between the Coeur d'Alene Tribal Council Van Orden, back and forth between Lieutenant Sifford stating that tribal leadership would prefer that the tribal police function as a primary law enforcement agency on the reservation, whether the call involves a tribal member or not. So we're going to come back and talk about some of these in a little more detail.
Break it up a little bit.
The next thing, on February 28th of 2023, the Board of County Commissioners meets. Sheriff Norris and Lieutenant Ellis present to the Board of County Commissioners a memo of understanding for Kootenai Regional Air Support, and states also that they're going to request civil asset forfeiture funds of about $100,000 to be used to purchase equipment like spotlights and other things to equip this helicopter that the county does not own. So they're taking civil asset forfeiture money. I was told, and I haven't confirmed this, that the money went directly from the county budget to this nonprofit directly. And remember, Lieutenant Ellis is listed as the registered agent. It's unclear as to whether or not he has any financial stake in this operation, but he is listed as being a part of that nonprofit. Conflict of interest there, folks. They're going to use that $100,000, and that the liability insurance from the, I guess it would be the private entity, is going to cover all the operations, but it is not subject to FOIA. So freedom of information does not apply to that helicopter. It does to some of the actions that deputies on board that helicopter might be involved with. But when it comes to the private records of that aircraft, it's a no-go. Let's see. Lastly, in 2023, date unknown, we've been told that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office discontinues routine patrol and responding to any calls for service on tribal lands unless specifically required by the tribe. And I confirmed directly with Benoit County Sheriff Els that the Benoit County Sheriff's Office did not know anything about this agreement with Kootenai County and the tribe until his deputies were being emergency dispatched to emergency calls in Worley, Idaho, which is in Kootenai County, because there was not any Kootenai County deputies available. So that's a lot to take in. Let's talk a few things. We don't know for certain that there was a bribe. We're still working on that, but the timeline appears to be a pay-to-play scheme, which is something that we've talked about quite a bit. That was a standard of operation at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, pay to play. You pay the politicians certain favors to get favors. Now, why is it important when we talk about the tribe requesting to take over patrol on tribal lands, including for tribal and non-tribal members? As I stated before, this comes back to Public Law 280, which addresses Indian lands and reservations as set up by Congress and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I know people get offended when we say Indians instead of Native Americans, but I'm talking about specifically what the law states. That Public Law 280 discusses how each state that was identified as having reservation lands was to conduct law enforcement on these lands. And in Idaho, it is up to the county sheriff to provide law enforcement on all tribal lands, period. You have citizens that are non-tribal members that live on tribal lands. They pay taxes to Kootenai County. They pay for law enforcement services. Now, there is also the tribe who formed their own police department many, many years ago. And those officers are considered to be federal officers. They're not local officers, but they're federal officers with restrictions on what they can and can't enforce. If this is true, this what appears to be a pay-to-play scheme, then what you're going to find out is that you have deputies that quit patrolling District 4, which is the area of the tribe that is, non-tribal members and tribal members live on. If you pick up the phone, you call 911, dispatcher requests to know whether or not it's a tribal member requesting services or a non-tribal member. And if it's a tribal member, then that is routed to Coeur d'Alene Tribal Police. But if it's a Kootenai County citizen non-tribal manner, then those individuals are supposed to be taken care of by Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. We do not want to see, first of all, federal law enforcement who were, by the emails going back and forth, cross-deputized by the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. In fact, I looked at the most recent list of all those law enforcement agencies that have the cross-deputization, and I believe there are 14 Coeur d'Alene tribal police members who have this cross-deputization. In essence, it looks like that the law enforcement coverage for Kootenai County tribal lands, which is about 1/3 the size of the county, was handed over to federal law enforcement. And people that live in the county that are non-tribal members, if I were you, I would be extremely upset for a whole host of reasons. So that's kind of in a nutshell what's going on. We still have many more records that we are sifting through, witnesses that are coming forth and letting us know what they've seen firsthand. But look, we've given you all the tools. You too can look at what I've provided, including the emails going back and forth between tribal council and the sheriff's office and the Kootenai County prosecutor, Stan Mortensen, and the U.S. attorney, Tracy Wellen, to see what they were discussing down there and come up to your own conclusions as to what's going on. Look, I have a major problem with Lieutenant Ellis serving not only as a deputy, but also as an agent for this nonprofit, which is receiving civil asset forfeiture dollars to the tune of $100,000, according to the record. I think that there's a problem within the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office where there is not a lot of accountability. I can tell you that day one that I get into office, the helicopter program is going to be no more. We do not need it. We don't need the liability. We don't need the cost. I'm not even certain really the true reason why Bob and Ellis and all those want that helicopter. So anyway, those are things for you guys to look at. And if you have any more questions specifically about the things that I just covered, shoot us a question in the comments below.
One of the things that we planned to talk about tonight is the fact that you were a reserve officer for 12 years. We will get further into really the benefits of that, or how that equated to benefiting the community financially, and some of the reasons that that is a positive. We've got somebody joining us on Facebook that has some, well, they're posed as questions, but really he's making a point. So
okay.
Dex Masterson, this is your time to shine, my friend, because I'm going to go ahead and ask this question. Tell me about your best felony arrest as a reservist. I was a department commander for OCSD, the 5th largest sheriff's department in the country. Reservists in our county were used for prisoner transport and traffic control. What did you do?
What did I do as a reserve? Well, in the state of Washington, we had all the same arrest powers that any full authority officer did. So a reserve officer in the state of Washington had to go through the same academy as a full-time deputy or police officer would. We had to pass the same test, everything exactly the same. The difference was when we worked for the agency, at that time, we had all the same arrest powers as any full-time authority, but the minute we hung up our uniform and went home, our full authority stopped at that point. So, I've been part of all sorts of arrests. I booked one guy in on first-degree murder in Spokane City, must have been 2013. I was actually the booking officer for that, for a dude that had hatcheted another man to death in a basement. I've done felony drug arrests, DVs, you name it. But I'm not going to lie and say somehow that I was some high-speed Hollywood-style cop. I was a reserve patrolman And the majority of the calls that I went to were assaults, they were domestic violence, they were burgs, they were accidents. Those were the types of things that I did, the mundane things that many do not want to do. So you've got me, sir. You did a lot more than me as just a reservist, and good on you.
Yeah, I think, and Dex has a lot of other things to say, but we're going to move on here.
And my question is what does that have to do with being the sheriff? So is there an assumption that because I don't have 20, 30, 40, 50 of these convictions and or arrests for felonies, that somehow that means that I'm not fit to be the chief law enforcement officer of the county?
Well, I will tell you, Dex has been blocked because his comments kind of went downhill.
Oh, what did he say?
Well, he called me an idiot, so that's I reserve the
Have
right
some
to
manners,
say
Dex.
bye-bye. Levon Oliver, what are your plans on attacking the fentanyl problem?
Yeah, Levon, thanks for joining us. Everybody knows right now the number one threat outside of illegal invaders in our country is the fentanyl crisis. And in Washington State, which is 20 miles to the west of where I currently sit, fentanyl is the number one killer of all overdoses in Washington State. I think there's like 100,000 deaths per year that take place. Look, the only way that we're going to stop this is one of a few ways. One is to shut the border down, which we know the federal government is not going to do. But the next hard thing that we have to come to the realization is that we have to start making Kootenai County undesirable for all kinds of trafficking to take place. So that's we're going to have to form task force, and we're going to have to hit it pretty hard. But we're finding mass amounts of fentanyl, all law enforcement inside Kootenai County on routine traffic stops. So, and it's just shown next door to the east, same thing. They're coming right down I-90.
Hey, Logan, we want to thank you for coming to our defense there. That was
What did Logan have to say? I don't get to see this.
Well, like he just was giving Dex a run for his money.
Oh. Thank you, Logan.
So being a reserve, I mean, the reason I think this is important is because it really filters into one of the plans that you have, a focus that you have when you're voted into office, and that is to have a robust reserve officer program.
Right.
What kind of money did you calculate that you saved, or what was the value of the work that you did in the time that you served, and how does that translate into the potential savings or what that can do to alleviate taxpayers here in Kootenai County when you're able to deploy that with KCSO?
I was fortunate to be hired on with the city of Spokane as a reserve officer in 2011. And what the way that program runs, the reserves at Spokane PD are not compensated monetarily. In fact, the only compensation you get is ammo and some equipment, but everything else it's volunteer, including your time to go through the academy. When I last checked, the report that Spokane City put out this last fall or early winter of 2023, they reported that the reserve program for the city of Spokane had saved the taxpayers over $800,000. So that's the equivalent of about 8 full-time officers. If you think about $100,000 per officer, give or take. It's a very successful program. They use that program not only to recruit for full-time, full authority officers, but also for individuals like myself that were businessmen that could actually commit the time and the training in order to serve the community. And so it's a great opportunity for those that want to learn whether law enforcement should be their full-time career, or those of us that did not want it full-time but were good at it anyway. When it comes to Spokane versus Kootenai County, I'm going to start a deputy reserve program, but my primary focus is going to be to first locate individuals who have recently separated within 3 years on good terms from another law enforcement agency. And once they apply and go through the same application process and background checks and all the other prerequisites, and they're offered an employment, they do not have to challenge post in order to become certified. And so these individuals are largely going to be career law enforcement professionals that have done all of the things, from felonies to misdemeanors to prisoner transports, but individuals that don't need a ton of training and that are tactically sound, reasonable, have been around the block. And I think that our program will entice individuals who say, yeah, we want to retire, but yet we love this county so much that we're willing to come in and help the deputies right now that are full authority in Kootenai County. I believe that my service for the past 12 years, when I calculated it, it was somewhere around $225,000 in 12 years of what I gave in my time, what it would have cost the agencies in order to employ somebody like me in my capacity. So, I believe that 12 years is a long time for no pay to strap on my Kevlar vest and my uniform, put on the shield and my gun, and go out and perform law enforcement duties without getting paid, subjecting myself to all the same risks and exposures that full-time officers do. But I did that because I love the community, and I believe that there's lots of other men like me that want to do the same thing, and women. And so we're going to welcome these individuals, and it's going to be a net gain for Kootenai County Sheriff's Office without having to raise tax dollars.
A little bit more on this, and then we'll move on. Some people say you continued to serve as a reserve police officer because you couldn't make it as a full-time officer. I know that we feel like we've addressed this a lot, but I also know that we have brand new people joining in every time we live stream, every time we post. And so I don't ever want this message to get stale for anybody who's hearing that for the first time. So being a reserve officer is not something at all that you're ashamed of. And in fact, we're promoting it because of the way that it saves taxpayers. I don't think that you believe it in any way compromises the community as though they're getting the B team. I think that is part of the perception.
Well, I mean, reserve officers have to complete the same training as full authority officers. So when I worked for my departments, I had to show up every month for the minimum 4-hour in-service training that we were mandated by law to continue each year in order to maintain our certification. So we're receiving the exact same training as somebody that's full authority does. But the difference is I did not go full time because I already owned, at that time, 2 successful construction companies. And I also had a third company, which was a consulting company. But the reality is that had I gone full time, I would not have been able to maintain my businesses at that time, and I would have taken a significant pay decrease. Now, it's been said many times, you were a reserve because you couldn't do it full time. And here's what's funny about that. People that actually think before they pose a question would already know that there was criteria that had to be made in order to be a commissioned police officer in the first place. And once again, it's exactly the same thing that any full authority officer has to do. Not only did I have to fill out the application and go through an extensive background check and oral boards and polygraphs and psych evals and physicals, all of that, same thing that a full-time officer does. And the fact of the matter is, the requirements to be a full-time officer are exactly the same. So if you pass to become a reserve officer, you are more than qualified. And I was recruited not only by Spokane Police Department to become full-time, but also with the city of Liberty Lake. Now, there's some of us who really love what we do in our professional lives and also have the ability to perform law enforcement functions because we are dedicated to the training and the amount of time that it takes in order to put in the reps to be a good officer. We do it for the love of our community, and we're professionals. But like full-time authority officers, we also have bad apples. And you can read and watch videos all the time of full-time officers doing extremely bad things, poor judgment, even criminal. But we don't throw them out with the baby with the bathwater. And in the same regards, there are reserve officers that also do not put in the time, they don't put in the effort, they don't reinvest, and they're not around very long because they're just a liability and they're gotten rid of. But for any of you out here watching tonight that has served in a reserve capacity, whether or not it's in law enforcement, shoot me a message, let me know. There are so many of us out there that we need to start actually celebrating those of us who served our communities with honor and integrity and dedication. If you served as a reservist in the military, the same thing. We don't diminish reservists in the military, but for some reason, there's an elitist mentality by certain full-time law enforcement officers where they want to dig on reservists all the time. But the real high-speed, true cops, those guys are professional in every way, and they do nothing but encourage and help train.
I know in some departments you have this clashing between full-time staff, full-time deputies or officers, and reserves.
Yep.
And so it's like, I'm on this side, you're on this side, and they want to battle it out because there might be an air of superiority for somebody who is doing it full-time. And they think, how in the world, it turns into a competitive deal, because how can some guy that swoops in here and does this once a week or whatever your shift is, provide anywhere near the type of service or know what I know or can do what I do? And it's like a challenge. So, okay, we know that exists. You come into office, how can you help that culture, especially if the plan is to build up that reserve program?
Well, we've talked about this every episode of live that we have done, as well as my live speaking events in the community. My belief on law enforcement is that if you are a law enforcement peace officer, you're doing it because you have a calling. And that calling is very important. It's no different than being called to be in the ministry or to be a teacher or some other community oriented service. And the reality of, I guess, let's see how I can think about this. Taking that culture and mentoring deputies below by seasoned individuals who understand that it's a calling, not a career, where yes, deputies must be paid a livable wage so that they can take care of their families for doing the great job that they're doing. But if it's just about dollars and cents, then you're in the wrong profession. There are individuals still old school that understand what it's like to actually be a peace officer with the goal of protecting people, the citizens' rights to life, liberty, and property, their constitutional rights. And it's those individuals that we're going to be bringing in to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office to foster a culture of true service and one of calling. So that's kind of how I believe that subject needs to be approached.
On this topic of reserve officers, we've got a comment coming in from Instagram, Deputy Northwest. Thanks for joining us again, by the way. It's one of our regulars.
Yep.
But he was saying in some ways, as a reserve, you're actually giving up a lot more than a fully commissioned officer. You don't necessarily need to respond to that, but I think that's a good point. But here's the other piece. He said, once you win, my father, who has 37 years of Leo experience, wants to be a reserve for you.
Can't wait. Yeah. I love the fact that we have so many great law enforcement professionals that are recently separated or even longer separated who are in our community because they are drawn to this county, which is one of liberty. And I think I like to say that we are a county of liberty without compromise. I want any individual that has a history, experience as full-time law enforcement to apply. And if it requires, because the statutes say that it has to be 3 years recently, separated, we're going to work on how we can get individuals who are outside that threshold to get them up to speed. But it'll be the same process for anybody that comes on, same background check, same application. But I'm welcoming the greatness of those individuals in this county who are ready and able to help us.
Another comment on Instagram, and then we've got a question I'll jump over to Facebook for. But Elliot on Instagram is saying, amen. As a career firefighter, former volunteer firefighter, it always depends on how much the individual is committed to the service position. Most volunteers are 100% committed to the calling, just as you were sharing there.
Great points. And I didn't mention, obviously our fire and medic friends. Look, this country was made up of volunteers. It still is made up of volunteers in many rural counties where the budgets just aren't there. Now, I was not paid in the city of Spokane, but I had friends who worked in agencies that were a county or two away, and that entire department ran off of reserve officers. So, look, it's an unfortunate conclusion if you believe that reserve officers are somehow incompetent. That's really not the case. And I could argue and say that I've met more full-time officers that are arrogant and lazy. You can look, in fact, that you want to talk about laziness in your profession. I was a carpenter. You could look at a carpenter's tools to find out how high speed he was, whether or not he had all the tools that he needed to perform his job on his actual tool bags and belts. And it's the same way with cops. If you're still rocking duty gear from the 70s, because you're too cheap. I mean,
come on
anyway.
Now. But I think also, and this harkens back to Dex before he got blocked, but why is it, and then we'll move on from this topic, but what is the deal with the vitriol when it comes to that subject of you having been a reserve, and then it's the immediate attack to disparage the experience, and then going on to say, like going really deep into the department. Have you done investigations? What have you done? What's your top case? That, like, needing to know every aspect before you somehow climb the ladder up to now you're worthy of running for the office of sheriff, or you're not going to have the respect of the people in the department. Where is that vitriol coming from?
My assumption is there's basically two sides to that. There are those that have been full-time law enforcement their entire career. They've known no other thing. And then those that are outside of law enforcement, they haven't actually worn a badge, but maybe they have family that's been involved in law enforcement, or maybe they're just uneducated, individuals. Look, the office of the sheriff is an elected position, no different than the county commissioners, the assessor, the auditor, the clerk, the coroner. Coroner is probably a bad example, even though it is an elected position, but we need to have elected officials that come from amongst the people. And so there is a misunderstanding of what a sheriff is and does. Some of that is tradition. Some of that is just people not being informed, but you do not have to be a career law enforcement professional in order to hold the office of sheriff. Now, oftentimes that is the case. And definitely when it comes to police chiefs, that's a different story. But as an elected official, there's only 3 things required in the state of Idaho to be a sheriff, and this is by design. You have to be a citizen of the United States. You have to be 21 years of age, and you have to have lived in the county for at least 1 year prior to running. And you say, well, why? Well, how can this be? Because the sheriff is an elected representation of the people, the chief law enforcement entity accountable to the county, to the people. It's great to have a background and understanding of law enforcement, but the beauty of bringing somebody from the outside, such as myself that spent 12 years working in the bowels of law enforcement at the most base level, doing every kind of rotten duty that you can think of.
Wait, though, were you picking up the laundry in the jail?
Oh, yeah, Sheriff Norris said he would not hire me to pick up the laundry.
You said the most base level, so are you picking up laundry?
I picked up other things off the ground that I'm not happy that I picked up.
True.
But the reality of it is that I also have 25 years of business experience.
So we get a question, because this is where you're going, back on Instagram. And then I'm coming back to Facebook because, Lisa, I know you've got a question. How will your experience as a business owner help you when you're elected sheriff of Kootenai County?
So part of the great thing about being an elected position where you're not required to have spent your entire life just working in one profession, where you have a bubble around you of an experience only related to law enforcement. You can elect somebody like myself who has law enforcement basic 101 and understands the process, but also I've got 25 years of business experience with two highly successful commercial construction companies. One's a commercial remodeling contractor company, and the other one is a commercial casework shop. And we've done work for the Department of Defense, different states, counties, large corporations as a contractor that carries IDIQ contracts and master contracts. So my 25 years of experience includes complex contract negotiations, because when you look at some of the contracts that I have to sign with some of these corporations and government entities, we're talking about hundreds of pages long. I also have experience hiring and firing individuals. Yes, when you are in business for 25 years in construction, you're going to have all sorts of individuals with all sorts of personalities and skills that work for you. Everything from administrative to field guys. And those people are similar, but majorly different. But more importantly, I've learned to understand how to surround myself with subject matter experts to solve problems that are bigger than me, outside of my 100% knowledge, by bringing individuals in key areas that do know and have an expertise in something, to bring them on my team to advise me so that we can take care of the overall mission of taking care of our customers. Now, in the sheriff's office, why is this a benefit? Well, I have actually gotten an Excel spreadsheet out. I have personally formed budgets and line items, and I've used my own dollars to do this, all the way up to multi-million-dollar contracts, unlike somebody that's worked for the government full-time that has only dealt in budgets that have a whole bunch of hands that are on them and using taxpayer dollars. So I've learned how to do things from a granular level, and it serves me very well when it comes to being able to administer, as I was going to start saying that I interrupted my own self. That's kind of a problem when you're staring at a bright light. Look, the sheriff's office has basically two sides of it. You have the business side where all the employees and all the resources and the buildings lie, and you have to take care of all the resources, including your people, which are your greatest asset, that help you provide a solution, which in the county is to serve the people. But in business, it's similar. I've got all my employees and my equipment and all my resources that I need, and I've got clients that have a need. And part of the problem that we're seeing right now is you have a sheriff's office that has solely focused on making the department better for the deputies working there, which is a good thing, but has lost sight on overall how to best protect and serve the community. So I got off on a tangent. It happens. I got to learn to be a little more precise and articulate.
Question from Lisa. Do you feel that the SROs are an important factor in our county schools?
SROs, of course, are school resource officers. Lisa, thank you for that. We live in extremely dangerous times, unlike anything that I've ever seen in my life, and many that are older than me would agree to. And unfortunately, we see these active killers, these active assailants, popping up all over the continental United States in every kind of capacity. And you never know just by looking at somebody whether or not they are an active killer. So it is important, especially when we have civilization that is degrading, that we do have resource officers in key locations in order to be the first line of defense for the kids and the teachers at those schools. So, okay, what does all that mean? Yes, I am in support of SROs and believe that they are important to our community at this time and place. But I don't know that we don't need to also look at possibly a partnership or another solution, which is maybe contract guards as well. So, I mean, these are discussions that we need to really look into deeper with the community and with those that we're serving, and to find out really what is the best service that can be provided for the dollars. And maybe in this capacity, maybe a private contract might be better for the taxpayer and better service for the community, but I don't know until I start being able to look over data.
Switching topics to a constitutional sheriff, what it means to truly be a constitutional sheriff. I've thought more about this, obviously, and I think of the difference of between the mind and the heart, which I know this can be to other subjects, but this really makes a difference when it comes to the office of the sheriff, and the difference between understanding certain aspects of the Constitution in your mind versus somebody who knows it in their heart and intrinsically will know how to do that job with that flowing from you versus, hey, I know a couple of aspects of this Constitution.
Sure.
One of the topics that came up again tonight, just a bit ago, in one of the political chat groups that I read some of the times, is that Sheriff Norris, he's issued a sworn affidavit that he'll protect constitutional rights and had that notarized.
When did he do this? Is this a new thing, or is this the red flag one where he went down to Wells Fargo?
I think it's the same one.
Okay.
It's the same one.
So that was the red flag. He wasn't going to enforce red flag laws.
Mm-hmm.
My belief on a constitutional sheriff versus somebody that uses it as kind of a buzzword is really on the understanding of the individual holding that office and their understanding of basically the history of the United States, all the way from the Mayflower Compact to Jamestown to pre-Revolutionary War during the French Indian War. And then after that, where the Brits got done using the Americans to fight their war and started abusing by excessive taxation the Americans, all the way to the Battle of Lexington and Concord, Patrick Henry and his speech before the Continental Congress, when he said, what are we waiting for? We can see what's happening. Mm-hmm. We know what's on the horizon. I don't have time for ceremony. Men may cry peace, peace, but there is no peace. I know no way how to judge the future but by the past. And the chains of slavery have been forged for us, and they can be heard dragging across the Boston Plains. The Declaration of Independence, that great document, and all the grievances that were articulated against King George, all the way through the Revolutionary War, and then after the war, when the states were operating and starting to abuse the citizens again because there was no real checks and balances, and the problems that was causing for other states and devaluing of currencies. Look, there was a reason that the founders wrote the Constitution and scrapped the Articles of Confederation, and it took them months of arguing and reading and drafting before they came out with this great document called the United States Constitution. But yet there was another problem. And where am I going with this? I'm not on a tangent. This comes back to the understanding of a sheriff. You have to understand that the Constitution was a great document, but it was lacking. And in fact, Patrick Henry argued with James Madison over this specifically when he said, hey, we can't ratify this. I cannot, as a Virginia delegate, I cannot agree to ratifying this Constitution because you're basically setting up another federal government to seize power over the people. And so that discussion led to the requirement to draft the Bill of Rights. And subsequently, the ratification of the Constitution by 9 of the 13th colonies, and eventually everybody signing off because of the Bill of Rights. Okay, what does all that mean? As a sheriff, if you do not understand the American struggle from the very beginning, which was one of liberty and liberty without compromise, and you understand that our forefathers, they dedicated their lives and their fortunes because of their honor, how important it is when you are the sheriff, the chief law enforcement officer of the county, who's in charge of being the first and last line of defense for the people. If you don't really understand the intent of the framers of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and understand our history of dealing with tyranny, how can you really accurately take care of the people that you're serving? How do you weigh through the lenses of a non-understanding of the Constitution when it comes to deciding whether or not somebody's rights are or aren't being violated? And we know that the federal government right now is violating people's rights all the time. Look at the FISA warrants, the FISA courts. Look at, they just allowed spying again of people without warrants. We have the DOJ sending FBI into traditional Catholic churches to surveil them. I mean, we see all these abuses that are going on. And sometimes it happens at the state level as well. So look, you can call yourself a pro-Constitution sheriff because you're pro-Second Amendment. And okay, that's a buzzword like Bob Norris is doing, telling everybody, I'm not going to enforce red flag laws. Well, I hate to tell Bob Norris this, but there isn't a sheriff in the West Coast, except for maybe that large county south of Boise called Los Angeles, that actually would violate somebody's constitutional rights. In fact, there shouldn't be any gun control, but politicians will use that argument to lead people who don't want to actually investigate themselves what a true constitutional sheriff is. And a constitutional sheriff should be every bit dedicated to preserving the Second Amendment as they are the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment. So
we're just at about an hour, so I'm going to make a final call out. If you've got any questions for Dan, he will answer them live. No matter which platform you are watching on tonight, you can put that in the comments section and I will get those over to Dan. Now, you had, well, I'm reading the last of what's being put here. You had something exciting happen over the weekend that
Yes.
we called to at the beginning.
Yeah.
You got an endorsement by somebody who's been, that you had followed and respected for a long time.
almost 20 years, yeah. Sheriff Richard Mack from Graham County, Arizona, endorsed me. He's a president and founder of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. That is the litmus test for individuals who call themselves constitutionally minded. I was able to meet with him Saturday when he came here to put on a couple of seminars, not only for law enforcement and elected officials, which Bob Norris, by the way, was invited to. He did not attend, nor did any of his deputies, but we had many other elected officials there. And it was a great honor for him at that public seminar to announce that he was endorsing me, not Bob Norris, as the constitutional sheriff. Now, Richard Mack, Sheriff Mack, sued the Clinton administration back in, I think it was 1994, after they passed the Brady Act, which was, later on ruled in a majority opinion by Justice Scalia that the federal government does not have the ability to force local law enforcement to do its bidding. So, landmark case, it confirmed the fact that CLEOs, which are the chief law enforcement officer, people often say, well, there's no sheriff found in the Constitution, right? So how can a sheriff be constitutional? It comes down to this. Scalia reinforced the fact that you have to look deeper. As I said earlier about sheriffs that understand the full history of our country, you have to go back to the earliest law enforcement entities in the country. And almost the entire country has counties, and only 3 states actually don't have sheriffs, and that's Alaska, Hawaii, and I think Connecticut got rid of sheriffs about 20-something years ago. So yeah, it was a great honor to have Richard Mack, who I've studied for many years. He had Mack versus U.S., and it was enjoined with Sheriff Prince out of Montana. Great landmark ruling for the citizens, especially those at local government level. So thank you, Sheriff Mack, for your endorsement. And I'm ready to continue spouting, proclaiming the spirit of liberty without compromise to anybody that will listen to me and join my cause, because I want to protect everybody's rights here in the county against an unaccountable federal and state government. And it doesn't matter whatever your religion, your race, your beliefs, your ideology, you will receive equal protection under the law, despite my own sincerely held beliefs. On my personal side, you will receive equal protection under the law.
Logan has a question. I'm going to try to make it maybe a little bit more generic. But if there was a federal case here in Kootenai County, one, do you know if Norris supplies deputies to the federal task forces or the entities that come in to deal with those federal cases?
I don't have firsthand knowledge of exactly what Norris was doing. You have to remember that Norris was part of the branch of Homeland Security right after 9/11 that was formed for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and he has a great affinity for federal law enforcement. You can hear it when he's in his town halls and he speaks glowingly of them. I believe that we should always be respectful to all law enforcement as long as they are playing by the rules. But as far as task forces go, look, I right now am very skeptical of the FBI. The Marshal Service, I tend to trust more, but when it comes to any other alphabet agency, if I have it within my power to do so, and I look at each case by case, we're not going to have a lot of these agencies here doing things that they should not be doing. And the first time they are caught harassing the citizens without a warrant, they're going to be read one simple right, and then they're going to be removed. So, Logan, I don't know if that really answers your question in its entirety, but hopefully you understand where my position is on it. We don't want any federal or state agency running roughshod over the people without due process.
Just want to put a reminder out there that we are broadcasting live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m., multi-streaming to YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Cool thing about YouTube, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, it's the Idaho Sheriff, it will send you a notification when we go live. So if you're like me and you think, oh, I wanted to listen, but I completely forgot and I need it to be automated, YouTube does that for us. So that's a good one to subscribe to Dan's YouTube channel. One last question. Can you expand a little bit on the Citizen Posse? More specifically, what would Posse members do and how would they be able to directly help the community?
Great question. One of my top priorities, if not the top priority, is to form a Citizens Posse. Now, why am I doing this? Despite the fact that I was told by state legislators that I met last fall prior to officially announcing my run, and other elected officials who said, don't bring up the word posse. It's going to get people all riled up and upset. Well, I decided that I'm going to do it anyway. I think that a Citizens Posse is needed, and a Citizens Posse is going to be made up of vetted volunteers who will come and get some training with us. They are not going to be carrying badges and guns, but we're going to take members from all over Kootenai County, people of different expertise and backgrounds, even if it's white collar, professional, all the way to blue collar, military. If you have any kind of expertise and you want to join, we are going to gladly welcome you. We're going to train together, but primarily the focus of a posse is to be able to bring the entire county together to secure the county's borders in any kind of a man-made or natural event that is catastrophic, where we know that the federal government isn't coming anytime soon, and the state government is probably not coming. It is up to us. Nobody is coming. And in order for us to maintain a society that is civilized during these events, we have to maintain the rule of law. Now, a sheriff and all of his deputies and every police agency within Kootenai County aren't enough to secure the entire county. We will need individuals from multiple different backgrounds. We may have issues with bridges, and we're going to need somebody that's an expert in engineering, or we may need operators.
I think it's Montana that's had to close down multiple bridges
Yeah.
because they don't have the funding to get them back where they need to be.
Yeah.
And have a way to deal with it.
We
so
need
these things, yeah.
Yeah, we'll need tactical people. So look, it's basically a way of bringing the community together in order to join hands to secure the county and to maintain the rule of law and due process. You don't want a breakdown of society where you have gangs that come in and decide who is and who isn't breaking any kind of law or covenant at that moment that they feel like that they should or shouldn't be enforcing. So really, the founders set government up well, and the sheriff has a unique ability as a chief law enforcement entity in the county, the chief law enforcement officer, to bring people together to come up with plans. And we have such great skills, great talent in this county. I love this county.
Well, we have reached our hour. Why don't you leave us with a word of encouragement? Also tell people where they can sign up for your email posse and learn more. We got tons of stuff on the website. We are seriously loading new things on there every day. You can even go into the search bar there on the website to see what you might be able to rummage up. But lots of things there for you to digest and learn.
Well, first of all, thank you for joining me tonight.
Yeah,
it's nice to have actually somebody I can look at besides just the screen.
Human being.
And you're always, of course, my favorite person, so that doesn't hurt. You can go to theidahosheriff.com. That's my website where you can look up all the things that Donna just mentioned, including my bio, what my priorities are, endorsements, videos, media, you name it, it's on there. You can also join up our campaign posse. So if you want to come and help volunteer from putting out signs to help hosting events to canvassing, you name it, you can sign up. You can also donate. We, of course, need donations. And for those of you who need the disclaimer, I originally started out as a Republican, but then decided right before filing with the county to run as an independent. If you're an independent, would you sound off and let me know? I think our numbers are far greater currently than what we're being told. You can also find me on all the social media platforms: X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Idaho Sheriff.
Yep, Rumble.
So come and spread our message, share, comment on our posts. Since Instagram came out in March with their censoring of political activity, we've seen our numbers go down dramatically. We were getting 500 to 600 new followers per week, and we've seen that taper off. So any help that you can in sending out the message for us, we love that. Now, we know that we have hard times on the horizon because weak men, like my competitor right now, we have weak men that have helped create hard times. And we are going to go through some really, really tough circumstances in the United States of America. But I want you to stay strong and of good courage, because of the fact is we did not descend from fearful men. We descended from men who understood the times. They knew what to do. They acted. They didn't stand around waiting for somebody to tell them. They joined together. They did tough things, and they pledged their lives and their fortunes and their sacred honor. And it is now up to you, who were born for such a time as this, to do your best to live up to the example that our forefathers put before us. Now, be strong and of good courage. Do the right thing. May God bless you. May God bless Kootenai County, and may God bless America. Good night, everyone.